Hey guys, this is Bharadwaj with phonearena.com and this is the Lenovo Vibe C. So I've been using this phone for a while for review and I found the camera to be really good. So that's what we are going to talk about in this video. This is the camera review of the Lenovo Vibe C. So there you go, that's the camera of the Lenovo Vibe C. It's a 13 megapixel unit on the back and has the Sony Exmor RS sensor, which is a stacked CMOS sensor. It's actually better than the backlit PSI sensor. So it's kind of a mature technology of that, and so it is very sensitive and really good. But Lenovo has coupled it up with a bright, fast lens. It's a f1.8 lens, which is just big aperture so that it can take really well lit low light photos. So that's what Lenovo claims, and it's almost the same module as the K900. As you might have seen in our K900 review, we really loved that camera and we hope to see the same performance in this too. But before that, let's just go through the camera interface. The hardware wise, this is the camera, the dual LED flash and the secondary microphone here for stereo recording. But the camera interface is the real differentiator here. So going into the camera, so here's the interface guys, the interface of the Lenovo Vibe C, which is very similar to the K900. So let's quickly go through the interface. Here are the video and camera toggles, the shutter buttons of camera and video respectively, the gallery thumbnails. You have a lot of effects. This is lens, magic, colors, so you have a lot of them, and a lot of them are kind of gimmicky, but these actually work better now because they are not as slow as before. As you can see, they are a little bit better because of the new Snapdragon 800 processor inside. It was earlier used to be Intel processor, which didn't work quite well. Now it's like really fast and really good. So if you want to use filters, then you know where to go. And here is the in-depth settings. You have several toggles here. You have the super night mode, which you can turn on when necessary or off. And then you have the flash toggle and the front-facing camera toggle. The front-facing camera is a 5 megapixel unit, which takes really good pictures. So if you're into selfies, then it will be really good. I can tell you that. And then over at the top, we have all these icons, very much like a DSLR or a point and shoot, which will tell us what's the current status of all those things. For example, there is the flash turned off, there is the scene mode turned on, there is the evaluative metering, auto white balance, ISO, and image stabilization, and then you have the 13 megapixel count, the battery, and all that. So this is pretty good. And finally, right at the top, you have the several modes, mode window that opens. So you have a lot of modes like panorama, HDR, super night mode, PIP, picture in picture, which will have both the front facing and the back facing feeds. And then you have the burst mode, your speech recognition mode, which you can use for self-portrait or self-group shots, the night portrait mode, smile detection, macro, and timed portrait. So these are pretty much normal, but there are also extension lenses, which you can use, very much similar to the Nokia lenses that we have seen. Eraser erases the moving objects from the frame. Group shot can change between the faces of the group. And then you have the GIF and Magic GIF, which are very much like the Cinemagraph mode on the Nokia phones. Going into the deep settings, you can see that there are quite a number of settings. Main settings that you want to see, which are not there on the K900 or the Super Night mode, which you can turn off or on. And then you have the switch CCD camera, which is pretty normal. Then you have the resolution. You can see that you can shoot at 10 megapixels in wide, which we have used for most of the pictures. But you can use also 4:3 with 13 megapixels. Advanced settings include settings for ISO, white balance, and setting the refresh rate of the camera. You can also set a lot of settings for metering, which is kind of cool for a phone. And other settings are pretty normal, like you can turn camera animation on or off, you can change the focus mode, and you can also have the setting for the volume key. So these are the settings, and that's the whole interface demo of the Lenovo Vibe C. But let's talk about the photos, the camera performance specifically. So this has the same Sony Exmor RS sensor as many other cameras, but the lens is quite different. It's quite sharp, and there is also a bit of post-processing and a lot of algorithms doing the work here, processing the photos. So a lot of differences here, but we found that the images are a lot better in many conditions than K900, at least objectively looking right now. But we'll do a side-by-side comparison and see which is better. But for now, take a look at some of these samples that we shot here in Barcelona. Here are some of the daylight samples. We took a lot of different conditions also. So let's start with daylight samples. So as you can see from some of the daylight samples, the photos have turned out really amazingly well. In fact, you can see how beautifully detailed they are. The 13 megapixel, in fact, just 10 megapixel photos have very good detail. And this is the HDR mode, which works really well on the Lenovo Vibe Z. The K900 also exhibited similar characteristics, but we found that the Vibe Z is certainly much better here. Everything looks very sharp and detailed on the Lenovo Vibe Z. So this is the normal photo and this is the HDR photo. You can obviously see how better the HDR photo is, and there is not also a lot of processing going on here. Look at the detail on this photo. There is not a lot of processing going on. It's really smooth. There is no edge sharpening. There is no edge enhancement or something like that. You can see that the photos are really natural and indicative of what the raw performance can be like. So HDR is a really good mode, and if you're using it in daylight and can keep the phone steady, HDR mode is definitely recommended. But even the normal daylight modes, this is without HDR, and you can see that it has come out really well too. But in certain conditions, HDR has worked out better. So this is a whitewashed normal photo, and this is a much better rendition in HDR. A really nice collage of all that. Still there is some haze here, but we think it's much better. So this is the daylight performance of the Lenovo Vibe Z. It has great performance, and you can check the full resolution samples at the link below. All the camera samples are there, and take a look at them and see how good they are. So that's the daylight performance, but we also took several macro shots to test out the camera's performance up close, because a lot of people like to photograph food and flowers or something like that. So we tested that out. You can check the camera samples now. So as you saw from the camera samples, they have come out really nicely. This is one of the best camera samples that we have taken with the Vibe Z. You can see how sharp it is. The lens is really sharp, and you can see clear demarcation between the bokeh parts and the in focus parts, which means that the 1.8 aperture is really at work here. So beautiful bokeh around the out of focus parts, and the in focus parts are extremely sharp, which is good for a phone. So again, you can take a look at the full resolution camera samples, which will be at our blog. You can check them out to find how the macro shots are. But as of all smartphones we have taken a look at before, the main Achilles heel of this phone too is low light. Let's take a look at the low light samples and then talk about them. So as you saw from the samples, being one of them, you can see that the detail is not exactly prevalent in the low light photos. The low light photos are absolutely good if you look at them on this screen, but if you blow it up, or if you look just closely, you can see how much of detail is lost here. This is automatically taken in the night mode. We set it on auto and took all photos. So pretty good for a phone and for Facebook sharing, but when it comes to detail, This is not as good as what we have seen with other phones. Even the Sony Xperia Z1 or the LG G2 have slightly better night modes, and the Lumias have definitely sharper details in the night mode. But the Lenovo Vibe Z is pretty good in the night mode too, but not exactly the best, we would say. So all these photos are pretty washed out and taken in the night mode, but in good lighting and in like different highlights and shadows, we have taken photos like this too, which are really sharp and really amazingly detailed. So in low light, it's a bit of a hit and miss. You have hazy photos, you have bright photos, you have noisy photos, and then you also have these photos without much detail. But overall, it's just decent, we would say. Like for example, the church photo you might have seen inside, this has really good detail in the center part where the lights are. You can read the text here, but when you go down, you can see that the detail is completely lost in the benches. These benches don't have enough, even the cross is not as detailed as the parts here. So the processing algorithm is kind of different here, and we hope Lenovo improves it on low light, because a lot of other phones can do it better, and we think the the Vibe Z would be much better if the processing is done right. So that's the low light performance. Not the best, but not the worst either. This is pretty good for the smartphone, but we expect much better in terms of software updates maybe. Now moving on to video, this phone is powered by the Snapdragon 800 processor, but can record only in 1080p mode. So it does not have the 4K video quality here, just 1920 by 1080. It can take 30 FPS videos, but the problem is, I'll just put it out, it's not that good. The video is kind of low bitrate and the audio is not that good either. It has stereo audio, but the audio recording is not good, and maybe you can judge it yourself by watching this video sample. So there you go, you saw the video sample, you can judge it yourself. It's not that good, so we wouldn't really recommend the Lenovo Vibe Z for the video camera. But otherwise, this is a really awesome daylight and even in artificial lighting scenarios. So beautiful camera, 13 megapixel f1.8 aperture. Lenovo has done it again. The K900 was really awesome. This is even better. You should definitely check out all the full resolution samples in the blog, and you'll know how awesome it is. So that's it from me, Bharadwaj, signing off. This is the Lenovo Vibe Z's camera review. Do hit a like button if you like this video, and do hit the subscribe button if you want more videos like these, and let us know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.